Mark Fennell is a highly esteemed performance life coach, best-selling author, and mentor with an impressive 20 years track record. His unique insights and proven strategies have made him highly sought after. He is regularly requested to appear on prominent media outlets, including the BBC and Virgin Media TV, and also on radio networks, where he shares his wisdom on real-life issues and provides invaluable advice. Mark Fennell.
Yes.
Welcome to the Modern Warrior podcast.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I've been following you a while, so I was like, definitely I'll be on that podcast for sure. So thanking you.
I appreciate it, man.
No.
And, and your content as well is amazing. And your following and your engagement obviously is touching a lot of people's lives. And the message you put out there. And recently, you've published your first book.
That's right.
Breakthrough.
That's it.
And I read the title and like everything, I started questioning it. Go, breakthrough. All right. When does a breakthrough really happen for someone? It usually comes from a breakdown.
Yeah.
And I know that that's been the source of your own personal story, your own personal journey here. So can you bring us back to that breakdown?
Yes. I'm only just over the post-traumatic stress of it all, so I'm grand to talk about. Joking. I'm good. No, so basically, well, look, you know what? I read books for a long time, been coaching for a long time, and always wanted to write a book. And if you asked me 20 years ago what I thought the book would be about, I said, I'll write a business coaching book because that's what I did. Little did I know what was on the horizon. So when Gil came to me and said, would you do a book? I said, yeah. Now is the time, you know. So basically what happened was, and this wasn't really where the book started, but it was kind of a mix of both, a bit of me and a bit of clients. And I remember, and this is where the book starts off, myself and my dad, we were going for lunch, and we walk into kind of a lounge, restaurant, bar / thing. But this particular place had always been a pub, you know, a bar. And as we walked in, there was guys at the bar. And this was in an area where my dad would have grown up. And they said hello to him. He said hello to them. And how's things? Same old, you know, whatever. And we had lunch and left. And he was telling me, he says, those guys are sitting at that bar. He said, probably 30, 40 years, if not longer. He said, since I was a young man, he said, they've been coming here. He says, the fact that they're still sitting there watching the TV in the corner, which is now a plasma, but it would have been a box TV back in the day. He said, the fact that they're still sitting there reading the paper, having the pints. And this is 2 p.m. He said, and they'll be there, he said, all night. Because he said, that's how it works. And he said, if you get talking to them, they'll just tell you about what happened to them, what went wrong with them. And basically, I suppose, as I would call it now, I suppose a victim of life, you know, that this all happened to me and that justifies me sitting here and drinking away what I'm going through, the pain I feel. And it was because I saw that, you know, they were so stuck. And then from clients over the years, a lot of the email I would get or DM would be, I just feel stuck. And sometimes it's for a reason, and sometimes it's not. We just lose our way or lose our motivation. And it brought kind of back to me, and this is going back to where the book came from, because I'd seen that and helped people with that over the years. And regardless of what got them into that feeling stuck scenario or just losing their spark, there was kind of a pattern that I started to, in my own coaching, started to figure out very much around identity and who you are and where you're going and stuff like that. And I started to see this would work for the, you know, the person who is out of college, doesn't know what they want to be, and the person who's a CEO for 20 years but now doesn't like the business anymore. And like, so it was such a dynamic group of people, diverse, but yet this kind of pattern would work for most people. Obviously, you'd tweak it a bit. But then in my 20s, I burnt out. Loved what I was doing, business coaching. I was doing a lot in America and I was flying all over. I was jet lagged half the time. My wife was in the business with me. We were married. So it was successful business, which was great, but I burnt out. I collapsed one morning in the gym, rushed to hospital. They treated me for a heart attack. Now, when you're in your 20s, you are faced now with what? I'm not bulletproof. And
20 what?
I was oh my goodness now. It would have been late 20s. So it would have been maybe 28, I'm guessing,
okay.
20s, give or take. And
not normal to collapse in the gym with 28.
So, and tingling down the arms, chest pain, like blackout, like legitimate. It was all looking like heart attack symptoms. They treat me for a heart attack. The fear of God came into me like never before. These waves of fear would wash over my body, which kind of turned out to be basically anxiety. I didn't even know what anxiety was, because back then mental health was not a conversation. It was like, we don't talk about those things. Just get up and get on with it. Or they'd say something insensitive like, it's all in your head. And people had no clue, in fairness.
There was almost an acceptance of worrying and being anxious.
It was almost like, just get up and get on with it, or take a few tablets, and that's the way. So anyway, turned out it wasn't my heart, thankfully. I had a torn muscle in my chest, but I had collapsed out of exhaustion. It turns out I only had 5 hours sleep because I'd done a conference the night before. A couple wanted me to help them, and then I was up early for the gym. I was trying to do too much, too many spin-ups.
It wasn't just that night before, though. It was the years.
It was
the accumulation of those.
Exactly. I was in this mode. I wasn't just working hard for a month or 2 or 6 years of this, years of this. I never had 2 days off in a week. It was 1 day, if any. But I loved what I did. I mean, you're in your 20s, you're full of energy. So you're gung-ho, sure, I can sleep when I'm older.
Yeah. Sleep when I'm dead.
Turns out, I've plenty of time to lie down.
You'll soon be fucking dead.
If you keep going. And this is a warning to everyone who's, high performer or kind of, highly motivated. Rest is productive. I never saw it like that. I always saw rest as just, rest is when I, nothing else to do. Waste of time. It certainly isn't. Anyway. So it turns out it wasn't my heart, but what did come into my life, which I'd never been introduced before, was chronic anxiety and hypersensitivity to sensations in my body. Because I said, what if they missed it? What if it is my heart and they got it wrong? I was tested now to the hilt. And for the following 2 years, I had to rebuild myself because the anxiety, I left the hospital with the all clear, but it was the beginning of this trauma because I was definitely traumatized by the whole thing. I wasn't ready for it. Mm-hmm. And the whole experience of anxiety came into my life. And I'm not talking anxiety as in, I'm a bit anxious about my chest or my heart or pain in my chest or a twinge or pins and needles or lightheadedness. It was, what if I die? The fear of, what if it's my heart? What if I collapse? What if it happens again? What if it happens when I'm on stage or speaking to a client? Or what if it happens? All these what ifs started to unroll. Constant rumination, constant, and hypersensitivity. And here's the thing about fear. It doesn't just stop, because anxiety is a reaction to fear. We all like to band-aid the anxiety, but unless you get to the fear, you never really fix the thing. Mm-hmm. And I said, what is it? I'm fear of not being in control of my body, fear of collapsing, fear, all these things. And that's what was compounding the anxiety. Anyway, I'll give you a long story short, as I say. I literally had to figure it out and unbox it. And the doctor wanted to send me away for a break, shall we say, but it wasn't to Spain for a holiday, put it that way. The men in the coats here will help you, basically sent me into kind of a place to help me like that.
Did you go?
No, didn't go. Not against any of that stuff, but I didn't go. And I'll tell you why in a minute. They want to put me on medication straight away because they said, you cannot function. You're losing weight. You're not eating. I was eating and started to think, what if I choke? Or what if, I was pure blown fear. And if you knew me, I was the extreme sports guy prior to this, bungee jumping, everything. I was the extreme guy, honestly. The guy who was chasing the fear, you know what I mean? Now the fear was chasing me. So I wasn't ready for this, but this is when you're not in control. It's a big difference. I didn't go on medication, didn't go away, and didn't go to a psychologist or therapist or counselor. And I'm not against any of those things like it was recommended to. And I tell you why I didn't go, because something in me, and don't ask me what this is. And some people say, that's your ego saying, no, I'm too tough, I won't go. And I went through that moment of, is this my ego or is this literally what is? But I really felt it in my heart. What if you could get through this? What would it do for you? But what if you could get through this? How many people could you help? And that weirdly came up in me. Now, I know where that came from because I was a youth worker prior to that and my parents and so forth. So I know there was always that kind of vibe to help people. Mm-hmm. That's why I was in coaching in the first place. So the coach in me said, what if? So what I used to do was, if I still feel this way or worse tomorrow, well, then I'll ring the doctor. But I'm not going to ring them today. And that day became 2, became 3, became a week, became 2 years. And when I say 2 years, because it was literally 2 years when I completely got out of it. And how I first got a break in it was this. I held my nephew. And for the first time, I had anxiety constantly. For the first time, while I was holding him, I was calm because I was focused on him. And I realized the focus on him got the focus off me. And the anxiety, I subsided for that hour and a half. And I said, if I can make that hour into 2, if I can make that hour into 3. And that sounds dramatic, but that's how bad I was. You should have seen me. I was it's the weight loss plan you don't want to be on. Just was a shell of a person. and fearful. And I was this motivational coach. Now, if you saw me in coaching at the time, you wouldn't know the difference because I was still the person I always was. But that's because the attention when I was coaching was on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I realized I need to get out of my own way. I need to start focusing on what I do and start focusing on expanding that hour of anxiety free into 2, into 3, into 4, understanding the fear and so forth. But anyway, it took 2 years and I broke through anxiety. And now I work with people who've been through the same, but there's a psychiatric nurse who sends me patients and she says, here's someone else just like you who won't, take any advice from us, but would you be able to work with them? And I'm not saying my way is the only way, it's not, but it was the way that worked for me. And I think whatever, and if anyone's listening who struggles with anxiety and so forth, there is a solution. You can get over it, find the way that works for you and go all in on it. And that's what I did. I went all in it. I heard a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Arnie, he says, burn the boat, don't have a plan B, go all in on A. And I heard that at the time. And I remember going, I'm going to go all in on A. And all in on A is that I will figure this out, understand what it's about. I read study notes from, thesis and stuff, people that no one reads online, these long PDFs that are 10,000 words, because I really wanted to. And I'd say probably came away with more knowledge about anxiety than I think most people. But anyway, I say all that because you asked me a question. That was a very long answer. Basically, through that and through helping people and so forth with their kind of breakthroughs became the book called Breakthrough. So I'd seen what it's like when you need a breakthrough because it got very dark and difficult for me because I said, how can I continue with this? The battlefield was my mind. And that's how the book came about.
Were you going through that process alone though? Good
question. How did I get through it?
For want of a better word, winging it?
Yeah, well, I had no clue of mental health. So I was.
So, are you going through this alone?
So at the time, now this is nearly 20 years ago now, but at the time, my wife was hugely supportive and my family was hugely supportive. And I remember she would say, what would the coach say to you if you had a coach here? She would kind of bring it back to that. What would a coach say if the coach was here? And I would always, when it was getting too much for me, and that would always make me then go, oh, this is what I could do. This is what I could do. And it was like just generating hope all the time, not to give up. But there was months and months and months, like the first year, there was no regression in it. I was just constantly, and I realized it's not a switch I turned on, but it's one I can't turn off. So chronic anxiety. It was challenging. Probably the worst way to get through it. But if you can get through it, probably the best way to get through it because you then learn stuff. I've never had anxiety since. It's the weirdest thing. Like, it's a great thing because I just understood the fear. And if ever I get normal anxious, like about something or, whatever, but not where it affected my quality of life or sleep or eating or anything of those things. Because if you can understand the fear, what's the actual fear, you'll end out indirectly solving the anxiety. What are you afraid of? And I had one person say, oh, I'm just so public speaking. And I said, because they were doing a presentation and I said, what are you afraid of? Oh, what will they think of me? What do they think of me? So I said, you're afraid of what they think. Yeah, I suppose I am. And I said, why does what they think bring fear into you? What's fear? Because you're afraid of what might happen. What if you get up and they laugh at you? You're no good. So what are you going to do? You're going to walk out and say, that's it, quit, to be defeated? Or are you going to walk out and say, how dare they? I'm not going to quit. And I kind of, warrior. But I kind of basically, I suppose, trigger that identity in them that's the fighter and say, so you're going to have people bully you off the stage, you're going to have people bully you out of the presentation, bully you out of your career because of what they think. No, in fact, it's not. The bully is not them. You're bullying yourself. It's called an imposter syndrome. It's called self-doubt, inner critic. And with that, he was like, give me that microphone. And sometimes, and that's why I always say identity is an powerful thing. It's a word that gets branded a lot, but do we know what it is? It's who identity is built off beliefs and values. And sometimes we've limiting beliefs, and sometimes we've misaligned values. We value more what they think over what we think of ourselves. And that's the problem. The people pleaser knows all about that. And for me, the identity was, and I got to this place, not initially, this took a lot of time. And I got to a place where I Googled, am I going insane? Honestly, because I couldn't stop thinking. I said, am I going mad? I can't stop thinking this stuff. But the way the brain works is, don't stop thinking of this. Yeah. The brain will just keep showing you that, right? And
if you think you're going insane, you're probably not going insane.
I Googled it, right? And I found a blog written by what's it, Mark?
Mark Manson.
Mark Manson. He says, if you're Googling, am I going insane? Chances are you're not. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm okay. So, but yeah, I mean,
because the insane person doesn't know they're insane.
They don't know they're going insane. It just happens, right? They know the difference. But I suppose the journey of discovery, I'd seen what would work for people, and then I started to apply it to my life. And am I going to be a fearful person, or am I going to just be a little bit more brave? And brave doesn't mean fear is gone. It just means I'm more brave than I am fearful. And I said, that's how I need to show up every day. I got to that place after maybe a year. But now maybe therapy could have got me there quicker, but I don't know. This is how I went. And I said, I'm not going to be afraid of being anxious. And one day I said, right, anxiety, do your worst. Not going to stop me doing nothing today. And you know what? Anxiety never came. And that was it. Done. So people say, well, do you remember that moment? Yeah, that was that moment. Anxiety was gone. That's not in the book, actually.
Why didn't it come?
I said, well, I was like, anxiety, do your worst. Right? I said, I'm not going to be fearful. Do your worst, anxiety. Like literally out loud, like a madman. Right? Come on, anxiety. What's the feeling? Where's the butterfly? Where's the thing? It never came.
Was it because you felt empowered or you felt in control in that situation?
It's like I took the control back and says, even if I feel anxious, I'm not going to be afraid of it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what fueled the rumination. You know, now anxiety, we could go a lot deeper on this, but I don't want to go too deep. But anxiety, when it comes to rumination, it's fueled by fear. It's fueled by the what ifs. I started saying, so what to the what ifs? So what if it's my heart? So what if I drop dead? So what if I'm in this plane and it falls out of the sky? So what? I can't control it. I'll focus on what I can control. And so what to what I can't. And that so what to what ifs sounds so simple, but that was a game changer to me.
Yeah, it's simple, isn't it?
Yeah. And I started saying, so, people say, but rumination, you have a fear. Say the person who's obsessed with cleaning their hands or whatever. But if you get a germ on you, what are they actually afraid of? They're afraid of getting a germ and getting sick and dying. They're fear of death, right? And I said, but you can't control it, so what? But they're horrible to thoughts to see yourself at your own funeral and people looking, all this kind of what if, worst case, catastrophic stuff, end of life stuff. And I said, but so what? You can't control it. So what? But how can you? Because I said, I'm saying so what to the thoughts, not to the actual reality, because it's not actually reality. It's fiction till it's fact. I said, I'm saying so what? So I used to say, right, anxiety, Mom, do your worst, make me anxious, whatever. And I'd wait for the sensation, nothing, because I was now taking control. I wasn't afraid of it anymore. And that was it. Gone, done, dusted. Because once you understand it, it's done. Yeah. It's mad. It's great though.
What was there life challenges that came after that though? That really tested your...
Oh, listen, I'll tell you, I'd write a book. Oh, I did actually. That's so funny. But so basically what happened later on, years later, was myself and my wife were trying for kids. And you just presume you try for kids, and then in a matter of months, you've got to get baby on the way. And that's just the normal, that's what you think is the normal order of things and so forth. Well, it turns out it wasn't going to be the normal scenario for us. Couldn't have kids naturally. So then we went down the road of pursuing all sorts of things that you could pursue. And then we eventually got to a place that they said, it's not going to be. That's it. Road closed. The cul-de-sac, as I call it. And I was like, that's it. Okay. Because there was a point of, how do I deal with, we really want kids. We love kids. And if I can't have kids, how can I still be happy? How do I see the rest of my life now? Because I've always saw my life of getting married.
There's a void there.
Yeah, it's a cul-de-sac. It's like the road closure, but there's no detour yet. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out that detour. And when you're faced with an opportunity taken away, or you think this job is the job and then they let you go, or you think this marriage is the marriage and then there's a divorce, you think, how can I ever find the happiness I had before again? And there is that despair that can set in. And for me now, it wasn't just me, it was my wife. And I had this mantra that I kind of quote a lot that got me through the anxiety. And it was, I can get through this. I will get through this because I must get through this. The must was, I won't quit. Now you can get yourself all motivated up and say, I'm not going to let anxiety beat me. But that motivation doesn't stick around. And 2 days later, it's gone. So it had to be an inner conviction that you just stand by regardless. And I remember saying, when myself and my wife, we can, we will, we must get through this. Because what's the choice? I remember we had this conversation, I said, well, what our choices are, we can be bitter and unhappy for the rest of our lives, or we can do something about it. And little did I know, you can find happiness. We don't have children. You can find happiness even when something that you desire doesn't happen, you can still be as happy as one knows to be. That's the good news. And so that was the biggest challenge that followed on from that. There's lots of other things as well, but what I learned through anxiety, it'll help me get through the fertility.
Does that still grip you sometimes? I mean, is that a process where, okay, I've parked that now, I've processed that, I've accepted that, now I can move on? Does it still come up when maybe you see kids, parents with their kid in the playground or walking on the street, or you go,
do you know what?
That's tough.
There was a time, initially, but not now. Not now. And I know why, because I'm going back to a broken record here, but it's going back to the identity thing, and there's an acceptance around that. Say, this is who I am. It's like I've worked with people who are incredible at some things, but they'd have maybe a disability, or, one girl I know, and she's one arm, and she always saw herself as different. And I said, yeah, but different is great. I said, that's what makes you. Mm-hmm. And accepting that as part of your identity. Ultimately, and it sounds cheesy, but it ultimately unlocks fulfillment. You can only be fulfilled if you were like literally filled up within oneself. There's no void there. And you've dealt with that void, or made peace with it and accepted it and filled it with other stuff. So my point is, I think when it comes down to, does it trigger me now or whatever? No, it doesn't. And I think that's just because the identity has just,
shifted around it.
Yeah, it's just, that's it. Like, it's the Viktor Frankl man's search for meaning. It's, lean into hope. You can quit if you want, but either way, it's a choice. Mm-hmm. Be a victor in life rather than being a victim mentality. Growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset. All of this stuff comes into its own. They all have their place. And I think that's all around identity. That's the thing. The thing about it is, when it comes to identity, whoever anyone is, I would always say, get clear on what you believe and what you value and go all in on that. And when the goalposts move in life, which they do, or someone dies or whatever, when things change, your identity will adapt. It will grow. Well, get the foundation right. Ask yourself the questions. Am I doing this job for the right reason? Am I pursuing this path for the right cause? Ask yourself those questions, which sometimes we don't ask until the world takes control of the situation.
We're forced to ask those
You're
questions.
forced to. Yeah, don't wait till then. Ask the questions now. Buy the book Breakthrough. It'll help you get there.
Available in all bookstores.
Yeah, that was a shameless plug. That's terrible. If you want to delete that, I don't mind.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Keep it in there. Yeah, it's incredibly valuable. But you're on this course not on your own. You're there with your wife as well. So has she been able to get on board with all this?
Yeah. She'd echo exactly what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing about it, because for a woman it is harder. Fact. It's hard for a guy, but for a woman it is very hard, because maternal and all that is, there's the emotions and everything. And
then there's also the sort of protective persona that a man brings to a relationship, isn't it? So you're trying to protect her, you're trying to keep her safe, you're loving her, but then you can potentially neglect yourself in that process.
As well. Yeah, that's true. I mean, for me, I found whenever I felt kind of a low moment going through because fertility is it's a long process and it's not easy. And for the woman, it's even harder, like with all sorts of things. But what I found was there was a sense or a temptation to feel shame of of I'm letting the side down, or people are going to judge me now for not being like a real man with kids. Those thoughts go through your head. I'm being real. And you kind of go, am I less than? Am I different? But thankfully, being a coach, I was quickly able to nip that stuff in the bud. But I can see how that could fester for anyone, regardless of how strong you are. I can see how that can fester. When you're not at the society standard, then you're subpar, you're less than, you're failing, you're dropping the ball, he must be broken. And there's all these things, let's be real, there's all these things go through your head. Now, we even got tested and everything. They said it's unexplained. Fertility is about healthy. We don't know. But what I saw through it was, it's amazing how, unless you're confident within yourself, you can be very easily knocked by something like that big event, right? And then you're trying to protect your wife, but you feel vulnerable at the same time. So you're not feeling all in the zone. But what I did used to do was, whenever I felt low, I used to put my focus on her, get the attention off me, and it just stopped you slipping even lower.
Just like you did with your nephew.
Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly it. It's exactly it. And that pattern worked for me. Just get attention on the people that topped me up. I can deal with a lot of things. So What I would say though, and this is what I've seen, and fertility is probably not everyone's kind of issue that they go through, but we all have.
Well, there's a loss there. So loss is something
there is that, yeah. And when you deal with it, there's an element of there's grief, because lost opportunity, lost experience, lost potential, lots of things. Like I remember going, I'll never be able to be at my child's wedding or give a speech as a father of the bride or father of the groom or whatnot. That's an experience I won't have. Or Christmas Day, going down with the kids. And they were hard conversations initially. That's upsetting. Now I can talk about it, no problem. So I remember thinking all that. And I remember saying this specifically. This is how I do. I remember going, well, Mark, you can think about that all day today and you know how that's going to feel. Or you can just say, I need to change that record, right? Accept it. It is what it is, but just move on. It is what it is till it isn't. And I remember thinking that way, and I had to have that kind of self-awareness to not let me slip, because you could slip very quickly. It could get dark quick. And I knew from anxiety not to let that happen, from mental, emotional capacity. So I used to say, no, well, you can spend all day thinking about this, or you can spend a time thinking about this, process it, and then move. And that's what I did. It's one of the tools I have, PDF, but it's process it and then move. Process it, but don't set up camp there. Don't be, and the thoughts, and you wake up in the morning, you can't always control what you think about first thing or whatever. The thoughts try to come back. So Mark, you need to have a plan for that. What are you going to do? So then morning routine became a thing for me. That when I woke up in the morning, I would do certain things that would enable me and so forth. And so,
such as
out of necessity, I had to do this. Such as not going on social media for me. Now, but that time, I will say this is before quite a lot of social medias. But what I used to do was, like the likes of Facebook and different things, I used to go on, what I would do is look at a quote that I'd written down that I found in a book, or and I still have them in my phone to this day. I'm not showing you them because they're all so random. But I used to write down what worked for me on my phone notes, right? And I still have those notes for me today. It's not the same phone now, just highlight that. but I used to write down what was working for me and what I wanted to think about first thing when I woke up tomorrow.
So you do this the night before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes I'd be reading the same stuff every morning that I'd written down a month ago.
Okay.
I said, right, that's what I want to read in the morning. That's what I'm going to think about. And I would have like a visual with it or a story around it or something.
Where'd you come up with that?
Get me. Do you know where I came up with that? Because I found out that anxiety was in control. And I said, if I need to take control, I need to tell my brain what to think.
Okay.
That was how so I need to prime myself. I didn't come up with it from anywhere. It was just, I don't know, my own little kind of madness of this will work for me.
Is it as simple as reframing your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously I subsequently went down the road of cognitive behavioral therapy and studied that quite a lot, and psychology. But before all that, it was like set intention and you beat temptation. Mm-hmm. And the temptation to just simply casually consume Instagram, that's nowadays, or the temptation to just think about whatever crops up first. And I said, no, I'm going to set intention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to think this, visualize that and think about it. Now I say visualize it. It could be a quote, and a quote I shared on a stage or to a client, and I would remember that memory of me sharing it and that quote to go with it. So there was a visual, there was a words. So there was words, a visual, and an emotional sensation. And I would do that in the morning. And
you've already experienced this. This is not like a manifestation sort of process.
No, I've already read that quote. Yeah, I'm not a manifestation kind of. I mean, look, you can't think yourself being rich. We'd all do it if you could.
Yeah.
But your thinking and your actions now you can do something. Like there's no point sitting at home going, I hope €1 million comes in the door. Well,
it's more of a, I don't even like that word manifesting, but more instilling a sense of belief that you actually deserve to have success and happiness in your life or love in your life. It's that you sort of manifest yourself into a successful individual that then success follows.
Yeah, this is where now, how long have we got on that one now? So I tell you why, because most people...
It's important. I think it's an important topic because
I agree.
It's fucking out there.
Well, I tell you what it is, right? I tell you what it is. Now, whatever works for you, right? But here's the thing. Most people associate what I was doing was more of a kind of a visualizing thing based off of memory.
Yes.
Right? And I do it to this day with people I coach. And we'll come back to it. If you're getting an athlete to go in a boxing ring, and you say to them, "Remember last time what we did in training? Remember how it felt? Remember what you did? Remember how you were in the mindset you're in? That's the mindset going into the ring." Or I could say to them, this guy's he's a lot stronger than you, and I've seen his, what's the mindset going to be like? So you can set your mindset, you can set your mind or not. And I was setting my mind, but I was using it through stuff that I could relate to. So that was based off memory, easiest one to do. So manifestation, a lot of people now use, manifestation's great. And what are they thinking about at the end of the day? Money. Like they're using it for money, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that is so great, right? But here's what I'm going to say. What if you said, what can I do today that's going to make me feel fulfilled? Now you've got contentment.
Mm-hmm.
Money will never buy that, but money will follow that. Profit will always follow passion.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to make profit and a passion to follow, that's when you lose motivation fairly quickly. So manifestation, for most people, they're associated with money. I'm not against that. But if you said fulfillment and whatever you were doing towards that, now maybe that could lead to something that's a business that you're going to love to do, whether you get paid for it or not. Now that's a content life.
That's more meaningful too, because it could be money. Okay, well, you get the money, then what? Oh, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if you become this person or you feel more fulfilled, what's your life look like then?
Listen,
oh, wow.
I worked with a gentleman who he sold a company, a very well-known company, and he never has to work again a day in his life, nor will his kids have to, right? Multi, right? And I was working with him when he was building the business, and now business is now sold and whatever else, and off he goes. And he will tell you, when there is nothing you can't have, you really start to ask questions. Now, I know this is only probably 1% of the planet or whatever. I don't know statistics. But when there's nothing he can't have, pretty much, right? He can have anything he pretty much wants. Then you really start to ask your questions. Now, what am I about? I had to do the identity piece with him as much as I'm doing it with someone who's out of college, not knowing what they want to do. That's why identity is a big part of what I talk about. Because your identity will not get formed by the dollar. Yeah. It's true.
Is it a big thing for men? Do you find that their self-esteem is conditioned to their performances, like performance-based esteem?
Yeah. And isn't that society what it's built? Not to go down that road of
capitalism.
It's all to do. It's like, the mark of success is what's the car, what's the logo, where do you live, what do you drive? Those things are relevant. They are marks of success. There's a story in the book about Terry, who bought a designer handbag. She came from a poor background. And it wasn't to show anyone the handbag. It was now to prove to her that she was able to change her financial status. She came from poverty, real broken poverty. She said, it's not about who sees it. I said, if you lived on the island, would you still buy the bag on your own? You're on an island on your own. She goes, I'd still buy the bag. I said, that's when you're buying it for the right reasons. You see, I think what's happened, well, not I think, I can see what's happened. And I see it very much, because I work a lot with teams and corporates in the high performers, the 20-somethings. I was there, I know. The 20-something who I'm going to have the biggest house, the fastest car, and the biggest boat. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's why you do what you do, fulfillment will not be on the other side when you get there. Because I'm in this game long enough to see people come through it and out the other side. They're now hitting retirement. They have a few quid and they're going, what's the purpose of my life? My job was my identity. And that's where we get it wrong. Your job is what you do, but it's not who you are. And I think it's something we really need to remember. Like, I love coaching. I love what I do, right? You love what you do. We love what you, it's part of it. You got to pay bills. All that stuff is great. But the real fulfillment is the helping to someone, the feedback that they got a result. That's what tops me up. When I'm 75, it'll still be the same thing. But if I'm just doing something for the money, then it becomes, well, where's the limit? Oh, you made 100 grand. Oh, I'll make 150. Oh, now it's 200 grand. Where does this? You're chasing happiness as opposed to trying to live in it. And don't get me wrong, fulfillment is not every day. If you're just sitting there doing a tax return or whatever, it's not very fulfilling. But what I am saying is, we do need to ask ourselves a little bit more, that at least once a week, we're doing something that just purely tops us up for us as a person, as a man, as a woman, as an individual. I think that's the fulfillment we should be looking for. That sounds, some people might say, that sounds a bit fluffy or whatever else. Trust me, I've worked with people who have enough money and they will tell you, who am I? Because I was always chasing to, the euros, and now I've got the euros. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, I don't know who I am.
Yeah, it's a trap. I think we've all fallen into, based on our conditioning in the past.
Yeah.
Society, all the rest of it, capitalism. But, and it's also a matter of values, because for me personally, and I've said this in a workshop recently, that like I could make an extra 10 grand a month if I wanted to. If I worked harder, I could make more.
Yeah.
But for me to spend more time and energy into work would mean less time and energy with the kids and family.
Yeah.
And I value my family and kids more so than the money. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to jeopardize time and energy with them for an extra 10,000 euro a month, whatever it is. So I'm deciding not to pursue that extra 10,000 euro a month or whatever. I'm going to invest my time and energy where it really matters. And it's kind of drawn that line in terms of enough.
Yeah. And it's the balancing, isn't it? It's the work-life balance. Here's what I'll say. Because when I'm coaching people, obviously I'm working with their business for, performance, but obviously bottom lines and profits, right? So that's what I'm there to help them do. But when I come in with the kind of say, well, look, what's fulfilling, what's whatever, and they go, well, we're here to make money here now. We're not talking about fulfillment and happiness and family, I come to work to get away from the family, some people will say. But here's what I'm going to say. When I say, but when you're working in your sector, your business or whatever, and if you got a team of whatever amount of people, and they're working and they're fulfilled in what they do, what naturally goes up? The bottom line, right? So that's why we focus on fulfillment. I'm not talking, from not inexperience here. I'm talking from experience here. Trust me, when people are happy with what they do, they go away with a job satisfaction. A rising tide raises all ships. Everyone benefits when our staff are like that. But not everyone can be like that. You'll have good days, bad days, and different things. Let's be real. But if we can generally have an ethos that we want you working to your strengths, we're going to look after you. Why do you think Google have the lovely offices and so forth, right? Because they want to make a working environment where the staff want to stay there. Staff are happy, Google are happy because the staff won't go home, right? Yeah. So they work more. So, but my point is, but everyone in that scenario is happy. Yeah. So that's what we need to work towards in every environment we work in. The mistake we make is when we have this, and it exists, as we all know, the dog-eat-dog approach. It's like, no, I'll get on top by climbing over you. It will serve you a whole lot better when you say, I'll work with, you don't have to agree with everyone, but working together so that we can all be kind of find some sort of happiness, in this terrain we're working on, everyone benefits over it. But when the dog-eat-dog culture comes in because of, I want that promotion, I'll do it to beat you or whatever else, sadly, that doesn't always work out well for everybody involved. I think, you see, it was funny. A guy said this to me, he's retired now, but he said, show me your network and I'll show you your net worth. And I always said, that's a great, now I don't know if he coined it, I don't know, but that's a great quote. Yeah. I've heard it from him, but it must be a book. And he pretends it's his own quote. Yeah. But anyway, and I always think it's so true, but listen, you've got to look after you in that way. And that's when I say values are key. Valuing the right stuff. Yeah, you've got to make a living. You've got to put a roof over your head. And why not have the best of gear? If you can't, why not have that? There's nothing wrong with that. But if that only becomes your sole focus, that's a misaligned value. That's going to impact who you are because you'll become dog-eat-dog is the sad thing.
It's important to distinguish between happiness and fulfillment, though, isn't it?
You see, happiness is a byproduct of fulfillment. It's fulfillment you want to go for. I would say like this, contentment is a better target than happiness. Contentment, I had a really bad day at work, but are you content overall? Yes, I am. So you had a bad day at work, so you're not happy, but you're content. You see, so happiness will come and go, but contentment is more what you're looking for. And
so happiness is like the surface level emotion.
That's when it's great.
Then there's the contentment, and then beneath that, there's the fulfillment. Is that?
I see it similar, but so when I say someone fulfilled, it means that for the most part, they are happy at what they're doing. They're content in what they do, but it doesn't mean they're happy every day. It just means overall. We all have elements of our job we don't enjoy. We all have elements of life we don't like. No one likes a commute. No one likes traffic, all these things. But contentment is the real question. So not happiness. Happiness is like a peak state. Mm-hmm. So, but contentment overall, it's kind of my inward feeling. Are you content in life overall? Give me a 75, 80%. I'm happy with that. That's good. Happiness though, feeling happy every day and so forth, it can't be sustained. So it shouldn't really be the target.
But that seems to be a huge thing that's promoted massively now as well in terms of happiness and positivity and think positive all the time, be happy all the time. And then if you're not happy, you're not positive, then you feel...
Oh, you're failing in life.
You're failing.
Yeah. And it's look, I'm a realist optimist. What I mean is the glass is half full, but I'm also aware it's half empty. And I'm not the positive guy, but I'm not a negative guy. I'm just kind of right there in the middle, and for the most part, I will lean into, I always say like this, I'll always lean into hope a lot quicker than I'll lean into to quitting because I know how quitting goes. So I just lean into hope. So when a push comes to shove, I will always lean to, no, we'll find a solution, because anyone can quit. So that doesn't mean I'm Mr. Optimist. Just I'd rather be that kind of optimist than a failing, quitting pessimist.
Well, it's served you quite well to this point.
Yeah, so that's the way it is, you know. It's like when I was going through the anxiety and going through the fertility and all these same things, we just had to lean into hope. We didn't have an answer. We didn't have a solution. We didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I'd ever get through anxiety, you know. And I didn't know if we were going to have kids, and then we were told we weren't having kids. I don't know how I'm going to be happy again, but I ain't going to quit, and I ain't going to get bitter. And I'm not going to hate on people who, you know, are fortunate to have kids, because that bitterness can set in. You go, oh, look, they have kids and I don't. And I don't like them for it. You know, that could happen. I wasn't going to be that person. So it went back to who am I? Who do I want to be? I want to be happy in life and so forth. But it has to be legit. You know, like I'm happy, but really inside I'm dying. Like that wasn't the case. You know, I was like, it has to be legit. So I need to get fundamental beliefs and values that ultimately, legitimately, this is the way it is for me. I am generally content in life. And that's why contentment was the mark. And when you kind of, what can I control? What are the non-controllables? You know, so what to the what ifs? All of that stuff, what I learned from anxiety, funny enough, came back around, and it just becomes what I live by now.
Being a husband and becoming a father was something that you did value, or you're still a husband, you still value that. But
yeah, of course.
This sort of void where there's no children, but being a father would be something would have massively valued.
Of course.
What have you replaced that with, or what's filled that void?
That's
for you?
a good question. That's a great question. Now, I'm not sure what I filled it with, but I'll also say there's no void either. You know,
but there was a void.
I think I'm going to answer like this, and this is to the best of my ability to answer that question. It's a good question. Now, I think. I never let a void take hold. When I say, here, let me answer it like this. When I was placed with, to get bitter or get better scenario, right? You know, you've right to be bitter with the world. You've right to say it's unfair. You are a victim of something that you didn't want and didn't deserve. Who deserves? If someone wants to be a father, everyone deserves to be a father. So you're in that position against your will. And I said to myself, that could make me very bitter, but I'm not going to let that bitter, because I tell you why. Here's what the answer to your question. Perspective was something that hit me, because my grandmother was dying of cancer, and she was in a hospice, and I was outside getting frustrated because I couldn't get a car space. And I remember going, the people on the other side of that wall will never leave there. I remember going, because she had only a few weeks to live, and visiting her and coming out. I remember going, I can go for a coffee. And I remember seeing a guy in a robe. That guy can't. I can go to the shops. I can go and smell the cooked grass, and I can do most of those things. And I remembered that when I was going through, we were trying for kids and all that. I remember thinking, I may not be able to have kids. There's a lot I can do. And it's those things I'll be grateful for. Perspective and gratitude. That's my answer. And that void, I never had that void because of that. I think maybe it was trying to whatever at one point initially, but I think I processed it in a way and dealt with it in a way that I don't feel now that I'm missing out on anything, even though I know I don't have, but it's like, I don't even know how you can compare it to kids. There's nothing you can compare. Kids are a blessing. You can't compare it with it, but I know there's things I'm missing out on and experience that I'll never have. That's fact. That's truth, right? But my heart doesn't wane, because there's lots of things that I may never have or experience. And if I naturally just don't think that way, I will always start. It's like, even when I'm talking to you, I can feel the magnetism pulling me over to what you have in your life, the perspective you have, and who you are and what you do and where you're going. So it's funny. I feel like drawn. It's like weird. But to answer your question, I think perspective and gratitude is because I said, I'm not going to get upset about having kids, because I remember this. What about the person who's just lost one? Their grief is a whole lot more than mine. What about the person who's in the hospice? What about the person who's, there's lots of scenarios. I remember hearing an old poem. It's an old song. And it's about a guy who spoke to his wife, and he was getting on the next boat, and she got on the boat with the two kids, and the boat sank. he never saw his wife and 2 kids again. And I remember, it's an old song. I can't remember the story now, but anyway, basically, but I remember reading that story going, how much worse would that be? And it's not like, oh, there's always worse. It is an element of that, but you'll always find things you may never have. And you can get bitter over it, or you can let it just be a part of, make peace with it. And I think I've just made so much peace with it now that perspective and gratitude always come in. That's my instinctive response now. And thankfully, it doesn't trigger me or anything like that, which is good. Good question. Going deep here, man. This is good. I hope my answer made sense.
Should have warned you.
Yeah. I wasn't ready for this. This is good though.
Emotional turmoil here.
Yeah, it's great though. I mean, this is what this is what helps people, and that's why I love your podcast.
But to get to that point, to be able to have that healthier perspective, and this is for everyone and for you as well.
Yeah.
Do you have to go through that process of sadness and anger and guilt and all, perhaps the grieving process, what I'm talking about here, in order to get to the point of, okay, I can accept this now? Because the reason I'm asking this is the change perspective, or comparing your situation to someone else who's possibly in a worse situation. Is that a dismissal of your own feelings? Is that well, you know what?
Could be worse kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. No, I do believe, and I said it earlier, you've got to process what you're going through. Never bottle it up, because it'll come out eventually.
Yes.
So it's going to catch you. No, you got to process it. Just don't set up camp there, and limit the time you spend on if you got to process it every day for an hour, that's fine, but don't process it for 10 hours. Because when you process something for 10 hours and sit in it for 10 hours, it's going to hang around for a week, or whatever. That's how I would be anyway. It doesn't just go away. So no, I didn't dismiss my feelings. I just learned to make peace that we can't always have what we want in life, even when it's a heart-wrenching desire. We can't always have what we want. And who knows why? But you know what? I'm just going to accept that fact and be grateful for what I do have. And, people talk about gratitude, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm grateful. Yeah, of course, I'm grateful for that. We all would have said that, but it's not until you're really in a situation like that, you really understand what gratitude, the power of gratitude. You really understand then what it is. Because I'm like, you know what? That's amazing. The biggest thing is, and this is what I've seen from working with other people who have had things not work out for them, business losses and different things. It's making peace with it, but it's seeing that just because something didn't work out doesn't mean you're less than. Because I've seen a lot of people who couldn't get what their heart's desire, whatever it might have been, different things, and they feel the fallout is they feel less than. It's like the aftermath. The nuclear bomb goes off. You've got the fallout, and then but they still carry the piece. The one piece that lingers is, well, I'm less than everyone else, or I'm not as good as everyone else, or I'm a failure, or I'm life's cruel to me, or what. That was always the thing I've seen, that people feel less than. And I think that's thankfully the part that I was probably strong at, and say, this doesn't make me less than. This just makes my story. It's like driving down a motorway. There's cars faster, nicer, and newer than mine. There's cars slower, older, and whatever, different values, all sorts. But if I get wrapped up watching the other cars pass by, I don't see what's in front of me. And that's like cutting off my own potential. So I came to a point, and this is because of my anxiety time. I said, this could either break me or this could make me. What if it made me? I didn't even know if it could, but what if it could? What if this could unlock where I could help other people? And what if I could get through this and I could be anxious free? Now, I was saying that at a time when I was riddled with anxiety. I couldn't see the bird from the trees on it. But I'm going to lean into hope. I'm just going to hope. I'm just going to hope. I'm just going to hope. And I took that same mandate with the kids scenario, wanting to have a child. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I'm just going to hope. I'm just going to hope. I'm just going to hope that I will. Just going to hope that I will. And then when you have that mindset again, just from the morning, just, thankful for today, thankful that I'm awake, even though I'm feeling like all I want is to have a child. When I was in that play, like waking up in the morning and different things, but I'm going to hope for a good day. I'm going to hope for a good day. What's weird about life, right? When you start to take control of your mindset, life starts to kind of throw you a bone. It starts to things start working out. Don't ask me why, right? And I thank God for it. It just does, right? And you start to kind of figure out a way, and you start to figure out a path. And then someone asks you on a podcast one day, do you feel there's a void? And I go, I don't even feel there's a void anymore. It's not the madness about it. Yeah. You got me thinking here today. That's good.
Brilliant.
I like it. But you know what I mean? Like you don't realize it till a question one day. You go, man, I don't even feel like I have a void. But I remember there was a time that I did though. You know, and I perspective and gratitude, I filled it up. And going back to you saying, does it mean I didn't process the feelings? No, I processed the feelings. I just gave it a time. And then I go, right, now I'll move. I'll do it again tomorrow if I need to. I used to set like something they call it now like a worry time, you know, I'll give it an hour of worry and then I'll stop. It was kind of like that. And it's easier said than done with something so big. But so the short of the moral of that story is whatever you've gone through, you'll get through it. You keep going. It's Winston Churchill. When going through hell, just keep going. And it's amazing the way life just begins to work out and you find that contentment. I didn't think I'd be happy ever again. I was like, I'll always feel there is a void. And you get to a place now when I go, I don't even feel there's a void. It's contentment and I'm happy out with that. That's the good news of the story. That doesn't ruin the book now, but there you go.
well, as you've talked about there, when you go through these processes or you've gone through a loss.
And it is like a loss.
Yeah,
it is like a loss.
As you mentioned, you feel less than, but often you become more than because that pain can fuel your purpose.
100%. And this is the thing. Like the anxiety thing, especially, like I needed, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but also the best thing that ever happened. You
have no book if there's no.
I have no book. Yeah, no, it's only it is in the book, but there's lots of other stories in the book for other people. But
in terms of all the work you did,
but in terms of what it's done for my coaching, it gave me an understanding of the human psyche that I think no book would ever have taught me. Because when you're on the other side, needing any help you can get, it's like I put it like this in the book. It's like trying to find a light switch in the dark. Hope, there's a part of you says, I'll just give up. It's how do I know there's even a light switch there? But hope says, I'm going to look for a switch. I don't know if there's one there, but I'm not going to give up looking for one. And that was me. And I just kept looking for the light switch, whatever it might be. And then I held my nephew for 1 hour or so. And that was, there's hope.
That was the switch.
That was like the switch. There's hope. That was like the lights came on for a moment. They went off. So there's lights. There's hope. That's how I kind of see an analogy. All I got to work on now is make that hour go to 2 hours. And then 3. What can I do? And it wasn't as clear cut as that. I wasn't always successful. Some days it'd be worse than others. And I'm going back 2 steps and 1 step forward. I applied the same thing when we couldn't have kids. Well, I just need to find what brings me contentment. And if I can still find things, let's see if I can build on those things. And the coaching became a part of it. So I'm very passionate about the coaching, you know. And I just started taking that same methodology. And once you don't quit, I've said this before to people. If you don't give up on life, life won't give up on you. And I think if you just hold on, even when you don't have an answer, even when you don't have a solution, even when you don't know what's the path, what's the next step, even when it's dark room, but just take the approach. There's a switch. You just need to find it. So just remember, there's a switch. Don't give up because you will get it. Sometimes you'll get a flicker. There's a switch. And that's the thing I would say. Don't give up on life and life won't give up on you. And it's mad how resilient we are as people. We don't realize it. I never would have thought I would have got through what I've got through and be out the other side talking about it, no bother like. But hey, here we are, you know.
What if people get stuck in the darkness? Or why do people get stuck in the darkness?
I think it gets overwhelmed and we just don't think there's hope. And that can be from anger, that can be from heartbreak, that can be depressive, that can be loads of things. You know, or you didn't get that thing thought you'd get, or whatever.
It's the victim mentality, though, is it, ultimately?
Quitting, you see, I can understand why people feel victims, because I've worked with victims who've been victims of horrific crimes from people and humans. Some of the stories in the book, but I know, so some people have a right to they were a victim. But I always say it like this, you may have been a victim at that time, but don't allow yourself to become a victim of life. You were a victim when that event happened. You were a victim when that assault happened. You were a victim, absolutely. And we need the law for the lawless. You know, that you were a victim at that time, but don't take on a victim mentality for the rest of your life. Because then we sit in the dark and we justify it to ourselves saying, I'm allowed to be like this because of what happened to me. That takes away your potential, but you're doing it yourself. You know, and I've worked with people who've gone through horrendous stuff that humans should never have to go through. I'm talking serious trauma now and stuff like that. And most would say, I can understand if, you know, they just want to sit in the dark and give up on life. I can understand. Yes, but here's what I'm going to say. That's one choice. or you've got a choice and say, but what if I can get through this? What if I can get over this? What if I can stand tall again? And that may have been a part of my past, but it's not who I am now. What we do is those things become part of who we are. They're a part of your past. They don't have to become part of your identity. And I think that's really, really important. And that takes work. And that takes maybe speaking to a professional, but that takes time. That takes work. The worst thing to do, though, is say, I'm allowed to be like this. If you justify your position, you'll stay there. And at the end of the day, that may not be the life you want. I spoke with one person real quick. I'll tell you the story. And they'd gone through on horrible stuff. And I said, if you had a blank canvas today and you'd no memory of your past, how would your day look? What would you do? Where would you go? Who would you be? Blank canvas. There's no past up until this moment. So who would you be today? They changed in their body position. They sat up and they'd just been crying, right? Oh, I'd go here. I'd travel more. I'd probably do this. And after an hour, literally them talking to me for 45 minutes, telling me about all these plans. And I said, and why aren't you doing it? Oh, well, because of what happened to me. And I said, how, what? Come on, talk to me. And they realized, in her words, she said, I'm choosing to live life according to how that perpetrator made me feel. She had taken that on, that's who I am. As in, I deserved what happened to me. It's really when we got onto it, which is pretty horrible because of what you went through. And I said, well, you have a choice. I said, that past, we can't change the past. We can't erase it. But we can stop carrying it into tomorrow. And the stuff she called out, I'd written down, took a photo, sent it to her. I said, that's tomorrow. And her life just changed from that moment because she just verbalized it. When she could see, it's like looking in the mirror, she saw herself, I'm living my life based off how that person made me feel, a victim, a weakling, vulnerable, because she was taken advantage of in a very bad way. And I said, that's not who you are. And she just saw that. And that was hard conversation, but she saw it herself. She brought herself there. And that's the difference. I think when you become your own coach, that's the beauty of it. And she transformed her life. Because she literally it was like somewhere in the back of her mind. You see, this thing about identity, it's like instinct. It's always there. It's just we cover it up or we close the door on it or we turn the lights off. And she had this whole list of all these things she wanted to do. Always sitting there for years. What had happened to her now was 20 years prior to this, which she'd lived her whole life. She was in her 40s at this stage. And she had her whole blueprint was sitting there. And it's amazing. Sometimes you just need to have the right conversation with the right person and say, do you know what? If the past didn't exist, who would I be? What would I do? Where would I go? And you'd be surprised what that actually brings up in someone. And that's the fulfillment I'm talking about. That's the hope.
That's such a powerful exercise. Yeah. You're quitting your life. You're quitting your destiny.
Yeah. I mean,
and you are the creator of your.
But this is it. And it's sometimes, and you can understand her position. She was a victim, right? But at the same time, it had just overwhelmed her and taken over her. And that incident created a false narrative. And I'll also call it a false identity, a fearful one, an insecure one. I'm less than everyone. I'm not enough identity. And I realized that the identity is because of that incident. That's actually not who you are. I say it in the book. It's like the lion in the cage in the zoo. The reason there's a cage is because the lion has instinct. You're thinking, but that lion has grown up in a zoo. It doesn't know to eat people. It doesn't know to run wild. No, but it has an instinct. You can put someone in a cage. You can lock them in a room. But their real, true identity is always within them. It just needs to be tapped into and open that cage. And I think sometimes that happens with scenarios and situations, puts us in a cage and we just accept it. Because we don't know, lack of experience, we don't know that it could be any other way. The lion doesn't know. But you open that door to that lion's cage and let that lion run wild, we'll see who's in charge of the zoo by tomorrow morning. It won't be the people. And so that's
don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try this in Dublin Zoo. Yeah.
No, but that's the instinct and that's the identity and that's what we all have. And it just sometimes takes a matter of tapping into that and who knows what it can unlock. Do you remember Men in Black? They had the zapper.
Yeah.
It's sometimes we got to do that with our past, make peace with it, process it if it needs, but don't set up camp there. Yeah.
Well, that's the mic drop.
They're too expensive to drop. We won't drop anything.
Brilliant. No, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Fantastic. No, absolutely.
Apparently you've got a book out.
I do. Yeah. That was dropped in there once. But no, look, thank you for having me on. It's been a really good chat. Yeah, Breakthrough. You can get it kind of anywhere.
Yeah, of course. Where can everyone find you?
markfennell.ie on Instagram, and it's the same for my website, markfennell.ie, 2 N's and 2 L's. But yeah, so there you go.
Brilliant, man. Thank you so much. I'm feeling empowered, inspired, and ready to open a cage here. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? We all have those cages.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Class. Thank you, man.
Thank you.